DreamingBeach.com. How are you? I got some new lights. Let's see. They do have different colors. Woo, that's strong. Let's turn that down. How are you guys? It's been, let's see, when was the last time I made a video? June 25th. Let's see. So it's been 10 days, I guess. After the Karen Reed verdict, I just sincerely, honestly, I just felt so discouraged, so disheartened. I'm trying to see what that is. I guess that's just the blanket on my bed. I felt so disheartened. I was so sad that there was no justice for John O'Keefe. And it also just gave me a new perspective, the reality that justice is not justice. Justice is not just. Justice is not fair and equal for everyone. Justice really depends on, well, there's systemic racism and there's money, and you don't automatically get off if you're wealthy and white. You know, there was that Ashley Banfield. She was a very attractive young white woman. I don't know how wealthy she was, but she was convicted of manslaughter in the shooting death of her estranged husband, Douglas Banfield. And, oh, she only get 20 years. She'll probably get out in 10. It says 10 years of probation, but she'll probably get be out on probation before that, I'm sure. But anyway, you know, so not everybody gets away with murder. And then we had P. Diddy, and he got away with the worst of the things that he's done. And I didn't watch any of his trial. I did not listen to any of the evidence, so I cannot claim to know. I, you know, have heard, I saw like one clip in particular where the guy was like, despite video evidence and text messages and email, like photographs, like basically every single kind of evidence that you could see that these things were happening, he got away with it. He got away with the worst of it. So what kind of sentencing will he get? I don't know. He's very famous and he's very wealthy, so he has that on his side. You know, there are some cases where the systemic racism doesn't always work against someone per se. You know, if they have a unique set of circumstances, like being a mega rich, mega celebrity mogul. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to jump on. I really had no desire to make another video. I'll be honest, I've been enjoying the break. I've also been dealing with a shift in my living situation suddenly, which was unexpected. I mean, I kind of a little bit was worried about it. Then I spoke to, so I live in a rent-controlled town, in a rent-controlled apartment, but my landlord of 8 years sold the house in March. She went through a divorce, and her husband was like, you have to sell the house. And she had owned this house, and she had, while I was living here, she had, during that 8 years, at like a couple years in, 3 or 4 years in, she bought that house next door, and her ex-husband wanted her to sell both houses so he could get some of the money. And so that's what she did. So she sold both, and there's that guy, new guy, he owns the house over there, and he moved in, and they have a tenant. And then the people who bought this house claimed that they didn't want to move in, they just wanted, you know, as an investment. Now they sent me and my neighbor eviction notices because both of our leases just happen to be up at the same month, and we've both been here for about 10 years, well, 8 years, 9 years. So this is a whole bunch of shit I wasn't expecting to deal with all of a sudden, because they said they gave us 60 days. I don't have enough money to move out in 60 days. Rent is crazy expensive now that I've been here for 8 years. Rent is obviously a lot higher 8 years later. So I have to deal with all that. And that's been on my mind as well. So I haven't been thinking about, you know, making videos, especially the other thing that I wanted to say is that now that I'm kind of like over it, I'm over it with these trials. And as I said before, my I originally started making videos because I was dancing around my living room, and I would talk about whatever I was going through, my own personal video therapy sessions. I was interested in manifesting my dreams and manifesting a specific person, healing from my trauma, learning how to love myself through the process of learning how to like myself. And then through that process, a lot of things have happened. My children have been growing. I was a florist for 3 years, and I was doing dancing and stretching videos all the time. And then I started to do more talking videos. And then that's why I have 2 channels now. And then I started to kind of get into the true crime. But I'm at, like I said in my last video, I'm in a crossroads. I'm at a crossroads right now, and even more so than I had even realized, because now I'm faced with the reality that I'm going to have to move. Even though I live in a rent-controlled apartment and a rent-controlled town, and there's laws that are supposed to protect people like me, so people like the landlord can't just swoop in and buy a house and then kick out the tenants who live there so they can, you know, do a little upgrade and then double the rent. I mean, that's obviously what they want to do, and they, you know, so that's going to be my issue. Maybe I'll talk about that while I'm going through that. And I, you know, I'm upgrading what I'm doing in my life. For a while, I was doing insight coaching, but that's kind of shifted to where I have some paid clients, and I have gone from having, one-offs or, short-term clients to now I've had a couple of these clients I've been with for 2 years. A couple of other ones are only a couple months old, a couple months that I've been working with them, and I'm hoping that it will continue and potentially grow. I'd like to increase, I have a hair on my arm. I'd like to increase my income. That would make my life a lot easier, a lot better. But you know what, I really just wanted to put out another video because it's going on almost 2 weeks now, and I wanted to say, hey guys, I'm still here. I haven't completely given up yet. I just am definitely going to be shifting. It's not that I will never talk about, live cases and things that are going on, but I am certainly not going to be focusing all of my content on that. And I'm not going to be investing in watching trials at the level that I was doing like it was a full-time job, because it's just very, very disheartening. And the video that I put out, I'm not sure if I shared it. Let me see. I did share it publicly. It was the video called "What Evidence Was Ignored by Karen Reed Jury Nullification plus My Jury Reform Program Proposal." And I put that video out on June 19th, 2025, and it is in the Karen Reed playlist, which is called Karen Reed Trial #Justice for John O'Keefe playlist. Pat Brown had said that she believes that there should be expert paid juries, and I said that I feel like that would make them susceptible to being paid off or corrupted. And then she said in another video, why would an uneducated, non-professional jury be any less susceptible to getting paid off or corrupted? Because it's obvious that they do get corrupted, and sometimes they get corrupted just by rumors alone, or an astroturfing campaign, or, a pink mob outside, or maybe, in P. Diddy's case, they just happen to, they really, really like him, or maybe they're misogynistic and they just don't care that much about victims, or, many people are willing to overlook someone who they really, really love and admire. They'll overlook that person's crimes. We also are living in a time where an actual rapist, criminal, felon is the president, and he probably stole it. And we live in a fascist oligarchy, crackocracy. What is it called? Crackocracy. Like, these are not the same freedom type of democratic times that I grew up in that we're living in now. Not to say that the systemic racism wasn't even stronger then, or, well, I don't know. I mean, there was a little period of time in between from when I was first born and now where there was like a little bit better happening, but that has been rolled back. And, and I think about that a lot. I had a little blip of my videos where I was talking about how corrupt Trump is, and I was very pro Kamala, and I also, now that I'm looking more into how trials go, and I see how it just makes no sense. Like, now that I've really have spent a couple of years paying attention closely to the so-called justice system, and, this whole, like, a jury of your peers, but I don't know. I have lost faith in juries and their ability to do the right thing, or to have the critical thinking mind to deliberate sincerely, to understand the evidence. Who knows? Maybe they don't even do what they're supposed to and not look at social media when they go home at night. Maybe they claim that they are not doing that, but they're asked the question, they say yeah, and that's it. It's not like people are surveilling them, and I wouldn't want that either, because that would be even more horrible of a system. But the lawyers that I had followed and thought were so great and unbiased ended up, I feel like they just went full steam ahead, nosedived into the conspiracy theory for Karen Reed, and it really, really gave me such a bad taste in my mouth. I unfollowed them all, except for Lawyer Lee. She was the only one who I felt like was being genuine, even though even her, I felt like she was giving a bit too much, contemplation to the defense bullshit. But hey, Karen walks free, and she is officially acquitted, and by law, she's not a murderer. I think she's a murderer, just like Casey Anthony. And it makes me disgusted. It makes me feel sick to know that she's got a movie deal. She's going to make a bunch of boku bucks off of murdering an innocent man. And I will always believe that. And it's also just, it's really killed my passion. Pun unintended, but it fits. It's killed my passion for the fine line between true love and true crime and legal liability, because fuck that, fuck it. It just doesn't, it's not fair. It's not just. It's not based on the evidence that's presented. It's based on twisting and, just blowing things up in a way that, I don't know. I don't want to do it anymore. So that's where I'm at. I did watch some kind of documentary on Brian Koberger. He said he was guilty. I had no intention of watching that. I actually felt some pleasure knowing that two of the lawyers, maybe all of those lawyers that I used to follow, were gearing up to probably make thousands and thousands of dollars streaming that trial. Nope. He pled guilty. Horrific, awful, disgusting things. Thank God. I'm so glad for the families of the victims. I think it was the right thing. He admitted that he did it, and now there's no trial, there's no appeals, there's no death penalty, but I don't believe in death penalty anyway. And what Lawyer Lee was saying on her video about it was that if they did go after the death penalty, let's say they did the trial, first of all, that's so much more pain and suffering for all of the victims and the witnesses and the families, the friend, everybody. Okay, so they can be spared that. But she was saying that if he were to get convicted with the death penalty, it could take 20 or 30 years, if ever. Most people on death row never actually get assassinated, or whatever you call it. It's super, super expensive. There's always these delays. And she said that for the next 10, 20, 30 years, the families will have to deal with appeals and delays and having press come up to them and in their face, is Brian Kober going to get it killed today? Is it going to happen today? You know, just this onslaught, this never-ending torture. And so this allows justice. I think it's justice. I don't think that, going after... Interesting, the lawyer that I spoke to when, I spoke to him, he spoke to me for like a half an hour the first time. The second time, almost a half an hour. I couldn't believe it. And then I was like, I'm going to hire this dude. And when I called him the third time and I was like, can I just ask you a couple questions? He was like, I just want to say, I think I've really given you a lot of great advice. I said, no, wait, first, I just want to know, can I hire you? And he was like, oh, okay. But he said, and then I had some questions about things. And he was like, well, because he said that he's usually hired by the landlord because they're the ones with the money. And I said, and so he's almost always like advocating for them. So I said, well, are you going to advocate for this? Are you going to advocate for me if I hire you? Are you going to be too friendly with the landlords? And he was like, no, I will advocate for you. He said, I don't fight to the death though. He said, if you want somebody who's going to fight to the death and I have a good name, he was like, Jen so-and-so, that is her thing. She will fight to the death. And, and there are some tenant-landlord lawyers who will, really, really go hard. He said he likes to try to resolve things and that, fighting to the death isn't always the best option. And usually the best option is to get the best with the least amount of harm to everyone involved. So anyway, that's what I'm going to try to do with my living situation. But I mention it because I think it does apply, like actually specifically, wanting Brian Koberger to get the death penalty because of what he did. I understand it. If you were the kind of person who believes in the death penalty, I understand why you would say yes, absolutely. That's a case where it would make sense. I don't personally believe in the death penalty because I think that murder is wrong, and I don't think that it makes sense to say these people can kill. I don't know. I just don't think that a human being can give another human being the authority to kill another human being. So, like, murder is wrong, and then, like, parsing it out and saying, well, what you did is so wrong, so we're going to murder you, but murder is wrong. I think murder is wrong, period. And, many people believe that someone who's done what he's done deserves to die, and they don't deserve to live the cush life in prison, and have taxpayer dollars literally support them. But then, like Lawyer Lee pointed out, it's actually more expensive to administer the death penalty is a very expensive proposition. And again, it takes so long that, ultimately it's more costly, especially with all the appeals and all this stuff. So, I don't know. I think life in prison without the possibility of parole in a high security prison I think that's justice. I do. I personally think that losing your freedom completely for the rest of your living days is justice. Of course, I would never, ever, ever want to have to contemplate such a thing from a personal place. But anyway, I also, as somebody who I have a very vivid imagination, I get nightmares easily. I don't like to watch horror stuff. I don't, and I've had to kind of walk this fine line between, I'm doing true love and true crime, the fine line between true love and true crime and my own mental well-being. Like, it's interesting and it's fascinating on some level to deep dive into the criminal mind, but at the same time, that's not what I really want to do long term, because I like to talk about positive things, uplifting ourselves, healing from trauma, and, you know, having a true crime blip along the way, it only makes sense. It's all within the realm of trauma and pain and abuse and suffering. True crime is a place where people die and other people get obsessively fascinated with someone dying and someone being a perpetrator of murder. And it is fascinating. My dad and sister were obsessed with murder mysteries when I was growing up, and I've read all of the Nero Wolfe books that my dad had. My sister read them, my mom read them, my dad read them. And, you know, my dad and sister, just like every single book that they would read, which was frequent, my whole family was avid readers, including me. And they would just always read murder mysteries. And, you know, I liked it to a point. And then I'm like, I had enough, you know, it's too gory. It's just too sad. It's too depressing. It's just, you know, I want to focus on positive, uplifting things, and, you know, moving to a place where I feel more confident about myself, that I feel like a happier person, where I feel more beautiful in the skin that I'm in, even though I'm aging and changing and my body like looks so different today versus 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I was like a stick and dancing and stretching and doing headstands and all that stuff. And now I've been so busy raising my kids, working from home, and just trying to like do other things that I definitely need to get back into fitness, get healthy again, get fit again. But I'm older now, and, you know, what I used to do it's not what I'm going to do now. And like I said, I have a lot of things to focus on between this lawyer and the new landlords, and are we going to move? Are we going to stay? I even floated the idea out to my baby's daddy, who has been living in another town for many years now. I mean, he did originally get an apartment in the town where we live, and he had that apartment for a few years, and it was great because we were co-parenting. He could pick the kids up a couple times a week. I would pick them up, you know, that he could go have dinner with them and drop them off. He could give them rides, lots of stuff. But then he moved an hour away, and he only sees them, you know, on the weekend, and he really can't ever like give them rides anywhere, or, you know, bring them to a friend's house, or pop in and take them out to dinner, or, you know, anything like that, because he's so far away. And one of the kids mentioned that he was thinking about moving back to town. So I floated this complete fantasy idea of, what if we rent a whole house together? Instead of me getting an expensive ass tiny apartment and him getting an expensive ass tiny apartment, what if we combined our money and we just rent a house, not a 2-family house, a 1-family house, and see if we can make that work? Most likely won't happen, and it's just a total long shot in the dark fantasy, because yes, ideally, if we poured our money in, we could have a much better living situation. The reality of doing it, though, I'm probably going to end up having to get my own fucking expensive ass place, and he will too, and that's just going to be the way it is. But those are the things that's happening in my life. I do have, like I said, the clients that I have and the work that I'm doing for them, and that is taking up a lot more of my time, and I'm glad about it because I'm getting paid. And hey, I love making these videos. I love shooting the shit. I love to make the video, edit the video, share the video, have people watch the video, comment on the video, like the video, share it, subscribe, hit the bell notification, join me on Patreon, check out my website. Oh, one of these days, I keep saying it, but for real, I'm going to have to add some items for sale on my shop, my homemade art, old stuff that I made years ago I'd like to sell. But if I'm going to be moving, I got to think about it. So anyway, you know, a lot is going on in my life. I will continue to make videos. The topics and subjects are going to change. I haven't mentioned in forever, I'm vegan. I live vegan. My kids are both vegan. I've been vegan since I got pregnant with my older son, who is 16, and raised them as vegan. we live as vegan now. So I haven't talked about that in a really long time, but I'd like to get back into healthier. I used to make a lot of stuff from scratch, oil-free, things like that. And lately, the last 8 years, it's been, nah, I'm not going to do that. So there's a lot of things that I want to shift in my life, and new hobbies that I want to get back into, and things that I was doing that I'm going to stop doing. So if you enjoy hanging out with me, you like my vibe, you like my insights, you just kind of like hanging out, you like my lights, then please subscribe, click like, comment, ask a question, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah! Ciao! Happy 4th of July. Was it really? I don't know. I don't think so. CatLoveDreamingPeach.com